Uh, did we cover what public and private IPs are in the last class, guys? Did we try understanding? I think we covered sequencing of IPs, right? We covered the sequence. Not sure about public and private IPs though. Did we cover that?
No, sure. We have not covered public and private. You have given over, I think,
Yeah, you have given the overview about the
overview, yes.
range of the IP address and the type
Sequence of
different types of classes like class A to class C.
Oh, okay. So we have not covered public and private. Oh,
No, not yet.
okay. I'm supposed to start from here today then. Okay. Okay. Let's wait for the others. Okay, guys, so let's get started without any further ado. I think it's already too late. Now, in today's class, we'll be discussing what public and private IPs are, and we'll also talk about the classification of these IPs. What are the five categories: class A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, so firstly, when we talk about public and private IPs, this can be easily explained from our own home Wi-Fi networks. Example. So, for example, if you take this image here, let's say we have a home network with a Wi-Fi router, and to this Wi-Fi router, we have all these other devices connected in the network. Oh, is my screen being shared? Am I audible properly? Before I continue further.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Great. So let's take the example of our home Wi-Fi router network itself. We have a Wi-Fi router and we have these multiple different endpoints. Let's say a laptop, a smartwatch, a smartphone, a smart TV, whatnot. Now, all of these devices are interconnected with each other wirelessly. Okay. And this becomes our own local private network. Okay. So whenever you see a local private network like this becomes your intranet. Intranet is a local private network. Okay, not the internet. Do not confuse this with internet. This is called intranet. Okay, so intranet is a local private network. Okay, so whenever you have a local private network as such, and when you want devices to communicate with each other, there we talk about private IPs. So private IP addresses are used in a local network for all the devices in that small area network to communicate with each other. So when your router wants to communicate with the phone, or when the phone wants to communicate with another laptop, in that local specific network, when you want communication to be established, we talk about private IPs there. Private IPs are the IP addresses used within private networks, such as home networks, offices, organizations, etc., for local communication. These IP addresses are not directly accessible on the internet. So with just these private IPs, you can't access the internet. For accessing the internet, you need something called a public IP. So your router gets a cable from outside the house and it comes and connects to the router. Okay. So that cable carries something called the public IP. Okay. So when you set up your router Wi-Fi connection, there's a guy from the ISP, Internet Service Provider, who comes to your house and again plugs in a cable to your router from outside the house. It could be an RJ45 cable or an optical fiber cable or anything, which comes from the closest hub outside your house. Okay, and that cable, that line is set up by the internet service provider. In India, we have ISPs like Airtel, Act Fibernet, Reliance Jio. In US, you have ISPs like AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. All these organizations provide you the connection of the internet. Okay, and that internet connection happens because of the public IPs. So your router gets a public IP, and that public IP is shared across all the devices in your intranet, in your local network. Okay. So when your phone wants to communicate with, let's say, a website like google.com, first it sends the packet from its own private IP to the router's private IP. Once it reaches the router has the connection to the internet. Okay. And now that router transfers the packet across the network. So from the private network, the packet is transmitted to the public network, which is the internet with the public IP. And from there, it jumps across multiple different servers on the internet and it reaches google.com. Okay. So that is how the IPs are working together to have a connection established all around the world. In your local networks, you go for private IPs. On the internet, the traffic flows on public IP. Okay. So to define each of these, public IPs are the addresses which are globally unique IP addresses. These are assigned by the internet service provider and they're used to identify devices on the public internet. Okay. These IPs are routable over the internet. Okay. So over the internet, whenever any traffic flows, it happens with the help of the public IPs. And these are specifically available only with the ISP, Internet Service Provider. Only the Internet Service Provider can assign you a public IP. You cannot assign it yourself. Okay. And to check what your public IP is, you can go to your browser. And in the browser, you can search for what is my IP. This shows you your public IP. So if I click on any of these websites here, this is what my public IP looks like. And you can notice all these IP addresses that you see here are all numbers between 0 and 255. You have the same pattern, 4 octets, and in each octet, the numbers are ranging between 0 and 255. Okay. On the other hand, when you talk about private IPs, these are the IP addresses used within private networks. Home networks, offices, organizations for local communication go for private IPs. And these IPs are not directly accessible from the internet. With just a private IP, you cannot access the internet, guys. Okay, you need a public IP for that. Private IPs are assigned by yourself. You can assign them yourself, or you can get them assigned by automatically by a DHCP server. Don't worry what that is. We'll cover that later. But these only allow for communication in a local network. Okay, so in your small home network or your organization network, if you have 10, 20 computers or other devices and you want these devices to communicate with each other, then they use private IPs for that. You don't need a public IP for this local network communication. Okay. And if you have to check what your private IP is for your device, if it's a Windows operating system device, you can open up your command prompt, CMD, and in the command prompt, you can run a quick search ipconfig. Okay, and you see this is what the private IP looks like. Okay, so, oh, just a second. Hi, Gagan, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah, Shoaib, you are audible. Shoaib, you there?
Oh, Usha, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I'm just talking to another student on another meeting link actually. So I was just verifying if they could hear me as well. Yeah, Gagan, am I audible to you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Right, I'm sharing my screen. We're continuing from the class where we left off the other day, Gagan. So I hope you can see my screen. Okay, good. Okay, right. Moving back to this. So that's what public and private IPs are, guys. Okay. Now, moving on, let's talk about this classification. Okay. So any questions or doubts up to this point? What are public IPs? What are private IPs? Where do we use which one of those? Any queries or doubts up to this point? Others? Jay, Vijay, Sheetal, Ushanandan, or Gagan. Okay. Others? Usha, any questions? Sheetal, any questions? Vijay, or just Jay?
I'm good, Chef.
Okay, perfect. Okay, okay. Moving on. So now, moving forward, let's talk about these different ranges of these IP addresses. Now, we all know the first IP is 0000, and the last IP is 255, 255, 255, 255. That entire range of IPs now is divided in 5 classifications. There's class A, class B, class C, class D, and class E. And each of these classes has its own relevance. We'll talk about that shortly. But before we get into that, let's talk about the range of IP addresses. Okay. And it's very important to remember these ranges, guys. You have to remember that. There's a very simple trick to remember it. Don't worry. Don't look at this table and get confused or get worried. Okay, there's a very simple trick. All you have to do is remember just 4 numbers and you'll get this entire table. Okay. So class A starts at the first IP 0000, and class E ends at the last IP 255, 255, 255, 255. These IPs are already known to us. Okay. Now, class A starts from 0 and goes all the way up to 127, 255, 255, 255. And since it's ending at 127, class B starts at 128,000. So all the 255s cycle back to zeros, and the leftmost octet 127 increments by 1. So that becomes 128. Okay. So class B starts at 128,000 and goes all the way up to 191, 255, 255, 255. Since this is ending at 191, class C starts at 192. From 192,000, this goes all the way up to 223, 255, 255, 255. And since this is ending at 223, class D starts at 224. From 224,000, this goes all the way up to 239, 255, 255, 255. And since this is ending at 239, class E starts at 240. So the only 4 numbers you're supposed to remember are these numbers, these odd numbers: 127, 191, 223, and 239. If you remember these 4 numbers, you automatically get the next range. Class A 0 to 127, class B 128 to 191, class C 192 to 223, class D 224 to 239, and class E 242 to 255. Now, again, in each of these classes, there are two categorizations, public and private IPs. So in class A, between 0 and 127, there's a small range of private IPs from 10,000 to 10,255, 255, 255. So any IP within this range is a private IP, which means these IP addresses can be used in your local networks, in your home network, in your organization network. For local communication, you can use these IPs. And any IP outside this range by default is a public IP, which means those IPs are only available with the ISP, Internet Service Provider. You cannot use them yourself. They have to be assigned to you by the Internet Service Provider. Okay. Just to elaborate on this a bit further, if we take the example of class A, this here is the entire range from 0000 all the way up to 127, 255, 255, 255. That is the entire class A range. In that entire class A range, there's a small private IP range from 10,000 all the way up to 10,255, 255, 255. So this is the private IP range. Now, any IP outside that private IP range is a public IP, which means from 0 all the way up to 10, which is 9,255, 255, 255, and after 10, which is 11,000 to 127. So these two are the sets of public IPs, and there's one small private IP set in between. So in every class, you have the same structure. You have one small private IP set, and excluding that private IP, all the other IPs are public IPs. Okay. So similarly in class B as well, between 128 and 191, there's a small private IP set from 172.16.00 to 172.31.255.255. Any IP within the small range is called the private IP, which means you can use that in your local network. And any IP outside that range is a public IP, which means they can be used to get internet connection from the ISP. Same structure in class C as well. Between 192 and 223, there's a small private IP set, 192.168.00 to 192.168.255.255. Any IP between this range is a private IP, and any IP outside this range is a public IP. Class D and Class C have no private IPs at all. These are the exceptions. All IPs in Class D and Class C are public IPs itself. Okay. So that's, again, these are some important ranges that you have to remember, guys, because again, I'm going to explain it in a while why so. But before we do so, a quick exercise, a small exercise. I'm going to write down some random IPs, and looking at this table, I want you to tell me which IP belongs to which class and whether they are public or private IPs. So this is going to seem like a small exercise for you to understand the range better. Okay. So let me quickly write down some IPs first. Okay. So I just have some random IPs here, guys. What I want you to do now is look at these ranges and tell me which IP belongs to which category and whether they are public or private IPs. Okay. So let me give you the answer for the first one, and accordingly, you can give me the answers for the rest. So looking at the first IP here, we have 10.20.3.10. So now look at the first octet. It shows 10 here. Oh, sorry. My bad. Yeah. So it shows 10 over here. Okay. So now looking at these octets and these class ranges, if the IP falls between 0 and 127 in the first octet, it belongs to class A. So 10 falls between 0 and 127. So this is a class A IP. Now that we know that this is class A, we'll specifically look at the private IP range. For an IP to be a private IP in class A, first octet needs to be 10, and the remaining 3 octets can be anything from 0 to 255. Similarly, for an IP to be a private IP in class B, first octet should be 172, second octet should be between 16 and 31, and the remaining 2 can be anything from 0 to 255. And for class C, first octet needs to be 192, second octet needs to be 168, and the third and fourth octets can be anything from 0 to 255. So we have the first octet here as 10, which means it is falling in this range here. 10,000 to 10,255, 255, 255. So therefore, this is a private IP. Okay. Similarly, can you give me the answer for the next one? 192.165.10.20. Which class is this, and is this a public or a private IP?
Class C, public.
Public.
Class and public. Perfect answer. Okay, why is this public? Because the first octet is 192, that seems to match, but the second octet is 165. It's not in this range. For it to be private, it should be 168 here, but we have 165, so therefore it's a public IP. Okay, next one.
Class C, private.
Class C, private, correct. Next one.
Class A, public.
Class A and public, correct. Next.
Class E,
Class E,
it's public only.
public. Next.
Last.
Class B, private.
Class B and private, correct. Next.
Class B.
Sorry, 1 second, my bad. I changed the screen. Yeah, 172.35.0.10.
Class B, public.
Class B and public this time, correct. Who is answering, guys? Is everyone answering, or is it just one person? Oh, Vijay, you're answering. Others, I hope you're following along, guys. Gagan, any questions on your end? Yeah, are you getting the answers as well? Right. Sheetal, and who else is there? Sheetal, Vijay, Jayesh, Usha Nandini. I hope you're all following along as well. Any questions or doubts up to this point? Okay, perfect. Right. Okay. Next answer, guys. Okay, so this is done. So next one, 172.30.0.10.
Class B, private.
Yes.
Right. Private, correct answer. Next.
Class C, public.
Okay, I've got one answer as public and one answer as private. Which one do you think is right? 192, first octet seems to match. Second octet is 167. So is that falling in public or falling in private?
Public.
Public, because for it to be a private IP, it should be 168 here, but we have 167. Therefore, this is a public IP. Okay. Next. 142, 250, 192, 221.
Public.
Class B and public, correct. Next. 200.100.200.100.
Class C, public.
Class C and public, correct. Next, 239.100.10.20.
Class D.
Class D for Delhi.
Yes, yes.
Class D, okay.
Only public, right?
Only public, no private IPs. Next.
That will be Class K, public.
Class A and public. Correct answer. Okay. So again, by looking in these ranges, you could get these answers, guys. That's a really good job. Okay. But I would recommend you try memorizing these, because as soon as you look at an IP, you have to figure out which class it belongs to and whether it's public or private IP, because that will let you know where the attack is initiating from. Okay. So basically, again, if you see in the upcoming sessions, when we go through various logs, we see a lot of IP addresses there. Okay. So as soon as you look at that IP, you have to figure out whether it's public or private. Because if it is a public IP, it means the attack is initiated from an external network. So you can block those external IPs. If it's a private IP, you know the attacker is in your own same network. Okay, so you can figure out who that is. Okay, so that distinguishing factor can only happen when you remember these ranges. Okay, so as soon as you look at an IP, you have to figure out whether it's public or private and which class it belongs to as well. Okay. Now, if you go back to your browser, we saw this IP here, 49.2.4.239.229. So if I copy this and if I paste it here, can you tell me which IP is this now?
Mm.
49.2.2.
Class A public.
Yes, this is a class A IP. Okay. And definitely this is public itself, because if you notice, we saw that from a browser. It is the IP which was the public IP which we got from our internet service provider. On the other hand, if I check my other IP here from the command prompt, 192.168.0.5, which IP is this?
Class B private.
192.168.0.5, class,
C, sorry.
yeah, class C, and this is private. If you remember, I think I mentioned this IP in the very first itself over here. Yeah, 192.168.0.5. And you gave me the answer, class C private. Okay, so this is a private IP from class C. Okay, so that's how you can distinguish. Okay, that's how you know this is a private IP. Okay, and that's how you know this here is a public IP. Okay, now you might have a question, why these ranges, specifically these numbers? That's quite an in-depth concept, and if you want to learn more about it, you can search about parity bit in IPv4 addresses. Okay, learning about this parity bit will make you understand why we have specifically those numbers for each class and for each private IP range. It's not a random number, guys. There's a logic behind it actually, but again, a very much more in-depth concept in networking that is not required for us right now. Okay, but just in case, if you want to learn why we got these numbers, try researching about parity bit in IPv4. Okay, so that's what will give you the answer. Okay, why specifically these numbers? Okay, moving on, let's talk about these classes now. Why do we have 5 separate classes? Why not just one single class with some public and private IPs? It would have made our job easier, right? But no, this difference in classes is because of different network sizes. So every network is quite different. My home network, what I have here, the Wi-Fi router network, and the network and organizations has a different number of devices in them. And depending on how many devices you want to connect in a network, you have each different class. Okay, so class A has 1 network portion and 3 host portions. Class B has 2 network portions and 2 host portions. Class C has 3 network portions and 1 host portion. Class D and class E have all network portions itself. Okay, so each class is different depending on the number of network and host portions it has on it. Okay, so class A has 1 network portion, class B has 2 network portions, class C has 3 network portions, class D and class E have all 4 network portions. As you're going down the line, network portions are increasing in number. Okay, but what do I indicate? What does it mean by these network and host portions? Let's talk about that now. Okay, so to understand these network and host portions, we'll take the example of class C first, which has 3 network portions and only 1 host portion. Okay, so class C now over here, if I write down the class C range in my notepad 5, okay, class C starts at 192.168.0.0 and goes up to 192.168.255.255. This is the private IP range for class C. And whatever network and host portions I'm mentioning here, these are only relevant for the private IPs, guys, not for the public IP. Public IP, no matter which class you take, it's the same thing. It's to assign IP addresses. But private IPs will differ from class to class. Okay, class C private IPs will behave a certain way. Class B private IPs will behave a completely different way, similar to class A. Okay, so when we talk about class C private IPs, they start from the range 192.168.0.0 and go all the way up to 192.168.255.255. That's the same exact range which we see over here, 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. That's the class C private IP range. Now, in that range, in the class C private IP range, first 3 octets are the network portions and the last octet here is the host portion. So this 192.168.0 is the network portion. Last octet is the host portion. Now, forget about all those network and host portions. Let's come back to the sequencing of IPs that we learned yesterday. Okay, so the first IP we have is 192.168.0.0. What would the next IP be? 0.1. What is the next IP? 0.2. What is the next IP? 03. What's the next IP? 04. This goes on all the way up to 0255. After 0255, what happens? 255 cycles back to 0, and the next octet changes to 1. Okay. Now, what I mean by the network and host portions here are the network portion gives identity for the entire network, and the host portion gives identity for each specific or each individual host in that network. So the 0.1 could be my Wi-Fi router, 0.2 could be my laptop, 0.3 could be my smartphone, 0.4 could be my smartwatch. So for each change in or variation in the host portion, I have a different host assigned to it. Okay. And all of these devices now belong to the same network, which is 192.168.0. network. Okay. And as soon as the 0 changes to 1, the network divides over there, which means now from here we have a completely different network. And these devices can't communicate with these devices because the network is different. For a device to communicate with another device, it needs to be in the same network as them. If it's in a different network, it can't communicate that way. Okay. That's the concept of these networks and hosts. So all of these are individual hosts belonging to the same network, 192.168.0. network. So the network portions give you the identity for the entire network. This is the entire 192.168.0 network. And then that network, the host portion gives you identity for each host in that network. Okay. So this is the 192.168.0. network. This is the 192.168.1. network. Okay. This is the 192.168.2. network. Okay. So from every class C network, you can connect a maximum of only 255 IPs from 0 to 255. I'm excluding the 0th IP just to round it up. If you include 0 as well, it's 256 IPs actually. But I'm just ignoring that and assuming in each class C network, we are connecting maximum 255 IPs, not more than that. Okay. So that's the specific property of class C. With class C, where you have 3 network portions and 1 host portion, in each class C network, we can only connect 255 devices, not more than that. Okay. Now, this is suitable for small size networks, for your home networks, for small organizations, you can go for class C. For MNCs, multinational companies, they might have a requirement where in their network, they have more than 255 devices. For that, class C is not useful. You have to move on to the next class, which is class B. Okay. Class B now has 2 network portions and 2 host portions. Okay. So in class B, the first private IP starts at 172.16.0.0 and it goes all the way up to 172.31.255.255. Okay. So in this entire IP, first 2 portions are the network portions, last 2 portions are the host portions. Okay. So let's talk about the sequence again. After 16.0.0, we have 16.0.1, 16.0.2, 16.0.3, 16.0.4, goes all the way up to 16.0.255. Now, after 16.0.255, you have 1 0. But please note, the network doesn't divide over here. Both these portions belong to the host portions itself. So 0255 can now communicate with 10 and all the IPs under it as well. Okay. So after 10, you have 11, 12, 13, 14, which goes up to 1255. Then 2021, 22, 23, 24, which goes up to 2255. 3031, 3233, which goes up to 3255. The cycle keeps on repeating. And somewhere down the line, you have 2550, 2551, 2552, 2553, which goes up to 255, 255. Once both these octets are full, 16 changes to 17. Okay. And whenever there's a change in the network portion, there's a divide in the network there. So here, the 16 dot network ends and then starts a new network, 17.0. From 17.00 to 17.255.255, that's the next network. From 18.00 to 18.255.255, that's the next network. From 19.00 to 19.255.255, that's the next network. And the last network you have is 31.00 to 31.255.255. That's the last private IP in class B. Okay. And here now in each class B network, since you have 2 host portions, you can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 devices. So for every third octet, you have 255 devices, if you notice. Okay. And this third octet will repeat 255 times. So 255 into 255 devices. So in each class B network, you're able to connect a maximum of 255 into 255 IPs, which is 65,535 devices. In class C, you could only connect 255 devices, not more than that. These are small size networks. But in class B, you can connect 255 into 255 devices, which is much larger. And finally, when we come to class A, it has one network portion and three host portions. So all the IPs from 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255.255 belong to one single network. When 10 changes to 11, the network divides after that. Okay. And in this one single network, we can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 into 255 IPs, which is the largest of all. Hypothetically, I mean, theoretically speaking, this is possible. Practically, it's not. You cannot connect those many devices in one single network. You would have latency issues. But theoretically, at least, that's the purpose of class A. Okay. So class C, only 255 IPs in each network. That's why in my home network also, I'm using the same class C network. Because in my home network, I don't have the necessity of 255 devices or more than that. I hardly have 5-10 devices, and those are connected in my network in class C. But in organizations where you have a necessity for connecting more than 255 devices on each network, you go for class B or class A. Anything will work. Okay. Is that clear, guys? Everyone? What is the necessity of each of these classes? Gagan, Usha, Sheetal, Vijay, Jay. Right. Others? Vijay, Sheetal, Usha, Jay. Any questions? Any doubts?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. Does anyone want me to repeat anything, guys? Please do not hesitate. I know these concepts are completely new to you, so it might seem a bit confusing. So, but no worry, all these sessions are being recorded, so you'll be getting these recordings as well. And you already have the notes. I think I've shared the notes yesterday. You can refer back the notes as well. Okay. Moving on, last two IPs to discuss, the class D and class C. So you might have a question. This is all class A, B, and C. What about class D and class C? What about those public IPs? So I have told you that all public IPs are for internet connection, but the exception is only class D and class C. Class D, class C IPs are not for regular internet access, guys. Okay. For us to access the internet, the ISPs will provide public IPs from class A, B, and C. Class D and class C public IPs are quite separate. They're used for special organizations like military organizations, research and development, weather forecasting services, government agencies. All of those organizations are reserved for class D and class C. Okay, those public IPs are special public IPs. They are assigned only to these special or other organizations. They're not given for the general public for internet access. Okay, the government agencies, your RAW, FBI, CIA, or Interpol, or whatever government-related agencies will be, or your research and development organizations, DRDO, etc., your US military research organizations, or your weather forecasting services. Okay, all of those organizations are given class D and class C public IPs. Okay, they're not given to the normal general public. Okay, what we use the internet access for is from class A, B, and C. If you notice my public IP as well, the public IP which I see here in my browser, I'm getting that IP from class A, if you notice. Okay, you'll never get a public IP from class D and class C. Those are reserved for other special organizations. Okay, so that's it. Nothing further for the session today, guys. We have covered what the entire range of classes are and their classification. What's the relevance of each class A, B, C, D, and E? Tomorrow. Oh, yeah, Jay, please let me know what is the query. Hello. Okay. No, that's not a problem at all, Jay, because what we are learning right now, these are the prerequisites actually. Uh, to answer that question better, please, I would recommend go through the last two sessions, Jay. I've explained what this course is about, what types of jobs you are going to apply for. So the cybersecurity course is going to be, employing you with job roles like penetration tester, security analyst, okay, or ethical hacker. Those are the jobs that we apply for, basically. And even if you're from a non-IT background, that's completely fine because, as mentioned, we are learning this course from scratch. Okay, these topics are not of cybersecurity; these are networking fundamentals. So we are learning the prerequisites first. We are learning the fundamentals first, and then we dive into the cybersecurity concepts. This is done keeping in mind that some of you might not be from an IT background. Okay, so nothing to worry. Even if you're from a non-IT, we're learning everything from the very basics. Okay, and once this course is done, you can start applying for cybersecurity job roles. penetration tester, ethical hacker, security consultant, security administrator, okay, SOC analyst. These are all the different courses available. I mean, sorry, the job roles available after course completion. There are other advanced courses as well, Jay, but again, I don't think that is necessary right away. At least after 1 year of experience, you can start doing those advanced courses. There are courses on different specializations in cybersecurity. Depending on what you're interested, you can choose one specialization. Okay, so you can either go towards web application pen testing, or cloud pen testing, or network pen testing, or mobile pen testing. So you can choose one specific specialization and select that. Okay, yeah, this course initially is more than sufficient for applying for a cybersecurity job role. Up to 1 or 2 years of experience, this course is more than sufficient. After that, you'll have to upgrade yourself again. Yeah, okay. Any other questions, guys, up to this point?
Is there a way to memorize this private IP ranges, Shoaib?
For private IP, there's no there's no easy way. Usha, or sorry, who was asking the question?
Yeah, it's Usha
Oh,
one.
Usha. Oh, there's no more easy way, Usha. You'll have to just remember those numbers: 10, 172, from 16 to 31, and 190 to 168. Okay. So only thing you'll have to remember is the first number is 10. In second octet, it's 172, and there are 16 networks. From 16 to 31, there are 16 networks there. And then in the third one, it's just 190 to 168. Okay, where any IP starting with 190 to 168 is class C private IP. That's all. Okay, so no way for private. Again, the only hard way, you have to remember these 6 numbers. Okay, for the ranges for class A and class E, there are 4 numbers to remember. That's all. But private IP, you have to remember these extra ones.
Okay. So, the way how we are assigning the private IPs, are we going to cover this in the next classes? Like how?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be learning how to assign private IP. There are 2 methods. One, you can assign it manually, actually. So that's what we're going to cover tomorrow. Okay, how to assign the private IP. You can either assign it manually yourself, or you can get it automatically from a DHCP server. So we'll cover both the methods. How do you assign it yourself? And what is a DHCP server? How do you change the configurations in a DHCP server? We'll cover that in the next session, guys. Okay. So tomorrow we'll cover these important services: DHCP, DNS, special IPs, CIDR, and that will be concluding the networking topic. Okay, so that we'll learn that tomorrow. Okay.
So sorry, the last question. Network and host, you said, right? The host, from that word we can understand it's like a number of devices, right?
Exactly. Network is the group of devices. Host is each individual device. If you remember from our first class, that was the first definition we started with. What are networks? What is networking, and what are hosts? Okay, so network is the entire collection of devices that we have. If we go back to the first slide, yes. What is networking? What are networks, and what are hosts? Okay, networks are the collection of those devices, the interconnected devices, the entire group of hosts. Okay, and each host is an individual device. It refers to each individual connected information system. Okay, computers, routers, printers, mobile phones. Each device is called as a host. Okay, so that's how you can again. And in the network portion, you're getting the network identity. In the host portion, you're getting the host identity for each host in that network. Okay, is that clear, Usha?
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Any other questions, guys? Any other queries or doubts up to this point?
Sure. How to access these recordings? Because I have not received any email confirmation yesterday's.
If you're from the other institute, Sheetal, again, there are 2 institutes I'm training for currently right now. 1 second. Okay, so if you're accessing it from DURGASOFT, you can find them on YouTube actually. So if you just go to YouTube, search for cybersecurity there, cybersecurity, and filter with the latest recording or recently uploaded, you can find the recordings there. Okay. Once you're registered, you'll get these recordings automatically on your Google Drive. Okay.
Oh,
So for DURGASOFT, for the first few recordings, these are uploaded on YouTube itself. You can access it on YouTube. You can search cybersecurity DURGASOFT and filter with recently uploaded.
okay, sure.
Okay. For the other institutes, for Gagan, you will be getting the recording directly from the institute itself on your email, on your registered email. Okay. Right.
And any
So,
other timing slots we have, sure? Other than
any,
7:30?
any other word, Sheetal? Sorry, come again.
Session timing slot morning 7:30, 8:30. And other than these?
We have one running at in the night as well, 8:30 p.m. That's my private batch actually, but you can join that also.
One of my friend is interested to join in that session.
Oh,
So
okay, sure. But that's not from DurgaSoft actually. That's my own private batch, separate batch. So
okay.
you can ask him to wait for a few days. Okay, and
Okay.
I'll share the details to you directly for that later on.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, okay, sure, Sheetal.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Bye-bye. Okay, guys, thank you. We'll exit the session. You will connect back tomorrow at the same time. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.